I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. I am very excited about my third film. It is now in the editing process. We're aiming for a release roughly 6 months or so from now. We're having a fundraiser for marketing and advertising, which we were not able to do with the first two films, at least not effectively. If you would like to make a donation, anything is greatly appreciated. A donation of $100 or more, and you get a film credit, as well as a pre-release copy of the film. All my films are completely self-funded with the help of your kind donations, so anything is greatly appreciated. We are booking guests for March. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Raven Keefer. He is a researcher and an expose writer from the mid-1980s through today. He currently has over 23 books in print, and he has been a lifetime researcher that contributes to numerous content creators and independent reporters. Raven, welcome back. How you doing?
I never know. How you doing?
I'm pretty good, man. It's good to see you again. I remember almost a decade ago when people like you and I were yelling at the top of our lungs about the corrupt, satanic nature of the ruling class, the trafficking, the media infiltration, Hollywood and the CIA connections, and of course, lots and lots of PDF files. I remember. I wonder how many people that were calling us crazy remember. But that's
Dude,
okay.
I'm telling you, I've been at this for 30 years, man.
Yes.
30 years.
It's all coming out now, but the question is, where's the justice? Where's the justice? Where's the firing squad? Where's the gallows? Is that even in the cards? Is this just all to further demoralize us? We're going to address all this and more here tonight. Raven, before we get into this, though, remind the audience just a little about yourself. Let them know how they can find out more.
I've been at this since the late 80s, folks, doing research and exposition. You can find me at Spreaker, Raven Keefer. You can find me on any of your podcast repeater sites. All my programs are out there, like Spotify and Podcast Addict and Podbean, free. I've got my Laugh podcast if you want to laugh. And I also got my music out there, so Raven Keefer Music, hashtag. But I prefer doing that, dude. The music and the comedy are good for the soul. This stuff here, it feels like it's rotting you from the inside out.
At times it does, man. At times it does. It's a very interesting time as it relates to truthers, conspiracy information, the things I mentioned in my introduction. It is all being presented out in the open, and like I said, where's the justice? Are we going to see anything come out of it? What are your thoughts on everything?
Let's start with that. Where's the indignation? Where's the anger? Where's the pitchforks and torches?
Right.
It makes no sense to me, man. All this stuff that's coming out that we've been talking about all this time. And it's now obvious that we weren't lying. And see, people are trying to act like none of this is even being spoken about.
Well, as I've mentioned many times, most of the folks I talk to are of similar thought process or quite like-minded. It's only when I venture out into the world and meet new people that the opinions might differ from what I'm used to. But for the most part, most of the people I'm surrounded with have been in the know of this information for a very long time. So
Oh yeah.
it's, again, another thing that's difficult to gauge because of the echo chambers. And if you're trying to gauge it from what you see online, it's almost impossible because you're just going to get fed the information that the algorithm believes you need to see. So it's difficult to see how the general public is really reacting to this. All I know is I don't see any arrests.
Yeah, I don't see any arrests. Nobody's hanging yet, which they should be. You know, the weird thing with me is, and we can get into some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about, but the weird thing with me is like, all of us, you know, we're like, okay, so it's out now, and I haven't gotten an apology of you.
Nah.
But
That's
you know,
okay.
yeah, I'm good with this, you know, but all this stuff that's being revealed, the stuff that's coming out right now, and you know, I'm a philosopher. I can't help, just because we know what the lies are, because eventually, just because we know what the lies are doesn't mean we know the truth. When you start finding lies, that's easy. You can prove things aren't true. It's a lot harder to prove things are true. And that's kind of what we've been up against for years. I mean, good example is 25 years ago, I talked about the hunting parties in New Mexico. They would take homeless people, or they would take people that they wanted to get rid of out in the desert in New Mexico and hunt them. And, you know, some of the stories is that, oh, well, if you survive the weekend, we'll find you a place and give you some money and set you up. And that's never been the case.
Yeah.
But, you know, we knew about that I talked about that 25 years ago. And now we know, interestingly enough, where's the Zorro Ranch?
Yeah.
And in one of the proven emails, they talk about hunting people out there. You know, it doesn't make me feel any better that the truth is out. And that's probably the hardest thing for those of us that have been at this for so long. It doesn't make us feel any better that the truth is out, because there's still nothing being done about it.
Speaking of conspiracies being proven true, we were talking before the show about the new information about Kurt Cobain's death now being ruled a probable murder because a forensic team put some fresh eyes on the crime scene materials. If he was on heroin, how could he have possibly been able to manipulate the shotgun the way it was? All the findings that should have been obvious the first time, but weren't for some reason.
It was to us.
Right. Another thing that was to us, but it's interesting how all this stuff is coming out now.
Well, and it makes you wonder, here's the other thing about this. You have to ask yourself, why is all this coming out now? You know, if they didn't want this stuff out, it wouldn't be out.
That's what I'm saying.
So what's the purpose? I would go back to the 1600s when the Jacobins were trying to overthrow the monarchs in Europe. There had been debauchery and heinous behavior, including hunting people. All kinds of nastiness, you know, from the monarchs, encouraged by the Jacobins and the wealthy, the other wealthy. And then all of a sudden, it started getting revealed to the population. Oh, you know, this one here takes a bath in blood, and that one there, you know, will buy people and hunt them in these woods. Same process in the 1600s, revealing the evils and the wrongdoings of the monarchs. And you had a complete reset there within about 100 years. From France to Spain to Germany, all the way up through to England. You know, they're doing this for a reason. You know, out with the old, in with the new is what I'm trying to suggest.
It definitely seems to represent a change of the guard. New boss, same as the old boss, just a few different policies. We're not going to openly traffic and sacrifice kids and worship Satan. We're going to out all that stuff. Instead, it's all going to be under the guise of this technocratic surveillance state that controls everything and traps people in technological virtual realm where they don't know what's real and what isn't.
And it will also trap information. So unlike us back in the 80s and 90s that could reveal all this stuff, even into the 2000s, by just doing the research and observations and gathering data, if the technocratic system goes in, yes, it can observe you 100% and interfere with anything that you're doing, but it would have a bonus on the backside of limiting your and my access to information.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they would just continue. I mean, it's this debauchery has been going on for at least 400 years that we know of. It's just the only time it's outed is when they want to get rid of somebody and reset the system.
I know you were telling me before the show that you've got a bit of a twist on the Epstein situation. Tell us a little about that.
Well, you know, everybody's paying attention to the dramatic and don't get me wrong. I mean, you know, CP and all the other stuff that they've been doing is horrible. The fact that they've got an email talking about, you know, two girls that were sexually asphyxiated and then buried. Yeah, I mean, everything that is the sexual aspect of it is horrible. All right, but a lot of people are missing something that goes back a lot further. Most people remember the crash of 2008 and 9. And they didn't pay, you know, some people aren't old enough to remember it. I mean, you know, 2000. I was quite old already. But the derivatives market was what was driving the economy, and the dumping of derivatives is what damaged the economy and forced the bailouts and all this other stuff. Well, do you know Epstein was directly involved in that? And the first bank that went under was the first banking system that went under was Bear Stearns.
For all us financial dummies out here, could you break down derivatives?
Derivatives, folks. What it is it would be like, okay, so I bet that horse is going to fall, and then I sell those bets to Chris, and Chris invests money in that bet, and then he sells those bets to another person, and then another person will sell that, and they pool them. All right. So what happens is the derivatives markets are just bets. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? And then if you're lucky and it pays off, you make money. If you're unlucky, everybody all the way up the chain loses money. And they have to sell they have to sell everything that they've got in order to pay off those debts all the way up the line. Well, when you got a big, it used to be that normal banks couldn't be what they called investment banks. So like where you and I would keep my money at, you couldn't do that. But they changed the Glass-Steagall Act and allowed everyday banks to get in on the derivatives and the futures markets, which aren't guaranteed money. They are if you're right, but if you're wrong, you lose everything. Anyway, so it's just basically betting on a bet on a bet on a bet until you get it all pooled together. And if it busts, which is what happened in 08 and 09, everybody loses money. So the best example I could give it is if I was addicted to gambling and you gave me $1,000 and I went down to the casino and I lost $1,000. And then I came back and said, hey, you know, I lost $1,000. Can I have 1,000 more? And you just kept handing it to me. All right.
All right.
That's really what they've been doing with the banks.
Yeah.
And Epstein knew this, but Epstein knew it because he was behind it. He was setting up the derivatives market. And when he dumped his $2 billion in holdings, that's what drove Bear Stearns down. That's what liquefied Lehman Brothers. He points to subprime loans, but subprime loans were moved into the derivative market as big blocks. So what happened is Epstein and his people are the ones that created that issue. And they made bank off of it because they dumped on the front side, driving, you know, great big holes in banks. And then when they knew that they were going to get bailed out, they didn't lose anything. As a matter of fact, they gained all the extra money from the bailouts too. So that's one thing that I want people to understand is that Epstein and his associates back in 2008 and 9 knew what they were doing when they destroyed Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers. And then, of course, wrecked our economy with all the other things that went on with the bailout. A lot of people still aren't aware. And here's the other thing, too. What we have today is no different than what East India Trading Company did back in the time when it was destroying India and China and building up the colonies, including the Spanish colonies even. And now we are a couple hundred years away from that. And what they're doing is they're using all of this, including 2008 and 9, to build up the East now, BRICS, to replace the banking system that's in the West, which is SWIFT. So, there's another 200-year cycle for you all to pay attention to. First, they destroyed China and India in the East and took it over at a very low level. I mean, if you look at the wages and the way people are cared for, and they transferred everything to the West, Western Europe and to the Western nations, which is, Canada, the United States, Mexico, South America. And now they're doing just the backwards. They are destroying the West economically. And they moved Warren Buffett moved his investments to China in 2007. Do you think that was an accident? Something else to point out is that Epstein was behind the establishment of NGOs to hide income and also to hide political meddling. So people like George Soros. Oh, before I go any further, Chris and I have not discussed committing suicide with anybody.
That's right, 100%.
We do not have any feelings, positive feelings about a noose.
I love life.
All right. And I want to say that because I'm going to talk about things that a lot of people get killed for.
Let's do it.
But anyway, Soros is directly connected to Epstein and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds.
Oh, yeah. That's all coming out in black and white right now.
Yes. And here's the other thing. For people who listen overseas, like in England, when your British pound crashed, that was Epstein and the Rothschilds crashing your pound so that investors could come in and buy it up for a pittance. And that's how Soros made his money. Epstein and the Rothschilds sold you out.
If you ask the media, though, they're trying to pin it on Russia. Epstein was a Russian asset.
No, he said multiple times in multiple emails, I work for the Rothschilds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
So I'm trying to figure out, the Rothschilds are not the top of the food chain, but they dang sure are in the top rung.
Yeah.
So, they're trying to throw them to the wolves too, which seems, like I said, it's a reset. Get rid of the old and replace it. And folks, they're going to send you some bright, shiny people that, wear $5,000 suits. And they're going to tell you, hey, look, these guys are a lot better than those guys. And I've said the same thing for decades. If you're voting for the lesser of two evils, it's still evil.
Do you think Epstein is still alive? They've had these images circulating that some claim is him, looks like a scruffy homeless man. Others are claiming it's AI. It's the perfect time to be able to claim these things because you can't tell what's real.
I don't think Epstein killed himself, and I don't think he's dead. But that image that they showed, I had a friend of mine who can read Hebrew. And he's been over there more than I have, and he says those are not signs in Israel. Folks, what we're talking about, there's a sign. There's Epstein with what looks like two bodyguards, and then there's a sign, a street sign back behind him. All right, it's kind of sitting like this behind him. And my buddy says that no, those are not anything like what you would see there. So
yeah.
I have to take it from him because he's been over there a lot more than I have, and I wouldn't recognize. I haven't been over there in 25 or 30 years. So
yeah, I think what would be more plausible is his gamer tag is still active, based in Israel.
Email. Right, his email. Also, his bank accounts. And the other interesting thing too is before he died, his accounts were set up in a trust that he's still using. Now, if you're dead, how do you use your own trust? I'm just asking.
Right. Right.
I never believed that he was dead in the first place, let alone that he killed himself. He's too valuable. You think about, we lost Kissinger, and we didn't lose him. I have to say, Kissinger is OG, probably one of the best that has ever lived about manipulating politics and politicians.
Yeah.
Him and Brzezinski, that whole group with the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds' money. But Epstein is the last of that group. People don't realize who he was associated with. Brzezinski, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, all these agencies that we don't like, the National Security Council, Trilateral Commission, the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, PNAC, Policy for the New American Century. He was part of all that with Kissinger and Brzezinski when he was alive, all the way back. There's pictures of him with Kissinger.
Yeah.
Ehud Barak, was friends with. He was and a lot of people want to talk about his trafficking of people. All right. That is horrible. That is awful. That is terrible. Okay. I make no arguments about that. But those are crimes against individuals by individuals. I'm talking about, and this is my twist on this that I wanted to present. Not only did he commit crimes on individuals that were horrible and heinous, but the financial and economic crimes that he helped commit through the years is what got a lot of economies and a lot of industry the way they are today. Stealing trillions of dollars from Western Europe, from the United States, and transferring it to the East or into people's pockets, like George Soros and himself.
Yeah.
But
there's so many layers to this. If you look back a few years ago, around 2018 through 2021, we had the Q phenomena, which was basically predicting a lot of what we're seeing unfolding today, mixed in with some misinformation. I'm completely convinced that that was a psychological operation of some kind. We see all the information coming out that was presented there. And if this is indeed a change of the guard to where they are trying to essentially destroy the old system, which I see Trump as a great representation of destruction of the old system.
Yeah.
What does that mean next for this administration? Are they still part of the old system? Are they going to be part of the new system? They seem to be destroying it and at the same time laying the foundation for the new system. But what role do you think they're going to play as time goes on?
If you look at the people that are in the administration today, they'd like to tell you like Marco Rubio's a new guard. No, he's not. I mean, he's the same old. Yeah. Hates Cuba with everything he has, and probably hasn't ever been there in his life. And don't get me wrong, I know that a lot of Cubans fled, but they fled because of what the United States and other countries were doing economically and socially in Cuba that made it impossible to survive there. Yeah. Same thing they've been doing in Iran for 40 years now. But the thing that you have is you've got this old guard that is everybody. I mean, anybody who has participated is old guard. A lot of people complain about the boomers, but there's a lot of Gen Xers in there that I can't stand. I would never claim them as Gen X, y'all. I'm just telling you, because they're just evil and greedy. But what are they going to replace them with? What are they going to do to destroy it?
Robots.
Somebody said we'd be better off ruled by AI, and that would be okay, except for AI that we have today is a set of preset program parameters and algorithms. So who's going to put the algorithms in? They can put an algorithm in that somebody who's wearing a pink shirt and sunglasses is guilty, and guess what happens to me? I mean, that's how it works. That's how these systems work.
Yeah.
Even the visual identification systems are set with parameters and algorithms that misidentify more than they positively identify somebody. So, the lies just speed up and roll on. The other thing about Epstein, eugenics. Jonah and I talked about this a couple of years ago with the eugenics and the geneticists and the biologists that he was working with. You know that they were working on creating an artificial hermaphrodite for sexual slavery?
No.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, they wanted to figure out a way to use hormones and genetic mutilation, not physical, genetic mutilation, in order to create artificial hermaphrodites because they would be worth more money. Yeah. So I mean, and then genetically altering children to make them make a male more feminine and a female more masculine, so that you have a androgynous, not a hermaphroditic, an androgynous being that would appeal to both sexes who wanted to, with the sex trafficking thing.
Yeah.
But the genetic, not only that, but eugenics too. Two different things here. We've got the sex trafficking genetic alterations, and then we have the eugenics, specific DNA that they want to take out of the system or they want to add to the system. And that goes back, to the eugenicists like Bill Gates and his father and his grandfather. Elon Musk's granddaddy, who was a technocrat and a eugenicist. This is, people want to think this stuff is all new, but it's not. It's starting to come out. And y'all, I'm not talking about the horrific stuff. I'm just talking about the economic and the social. The horrific stuff is bad enough. I mean, I had enough of the horrific. Remember, and here's the other thing: it's a distraction. All this fantastic stuff there. What about Wiener's laptop?
Right.
Y'all, I'm just going to say it, and I don't mean to horrify anybody, but they literally filleted a baby alive. I saw it. I didn't sleep for almost a week. Every time I go to sleep, I saw it. Yeah, on the dark web.
Oh.
Somebody said, I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
They filleted a baby alive.
And you saw
and that's
clearly Killery's face?
Yes.
Oh.
That's the reason why I said I have no death wish, and I'm not suicidal. Something else to bring up while we brought up Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Benghazi. Epstein was involved in Benghazi and trying to cover it up. Interestingly enough, we have this Guthrie lady who has been kidnapped. Her and her husband, Mr. Fellman, ran a company called Grove Park. And you know what her and her husband did at her company? They scrubbed the internet of things that the Clintons and their associates did not want to be found out. And then all of a sudden, after she got kidnapped, all of a sudden, Bill and Hillary said that they would testify. Do you think that's a coincidence?
Right.
And, she would be probably one of the few people remaining that would have dirt on the Clintons. Because that's what her and her husband did at Grove Park, is they cleaned the internet. They were called scrubbers. I'm surprised Cohn's still alive. Cohn, his association with I don't know if he is still alive, but Cohn's association with Trump is one thing, but his association with the Clintons is just the same economically.
Trump is obviously involved on some level with these Epstein operations. He has obviously had he's obviously had a relationship for a very long time. To what degree he's involved, we have yet to find out, if ever. Many are talking about possibly Trump having a third term. What do you see coming out of the Epstein files? How do you see it affecting the Trump administration, if at all?
Obviously, and I'm going to call him out right here. That what is his name? Benjani, or whatever his name was. That was a internet YouTuber, and then he went to work for the FBI and came back out and said there wasn't anything.
Yeah,
he was a sniper. You know what? A liar, Borgiano, what, I can't even say his name, but anyway, he's a liar. Kash Patel is a liar. If you are committing fraud to cover up felonies, you're guilty of a felony. So right now, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and everybody associated with the AG and the FBI that knows about this, They are right now, if they do not have an active case going against these people, then they are committing conspiracy to cover up felonies. I mean, these are massive felonies. So basically what we have is we have people who are supposed to be enforcing the law and prosecuting that are committing conspiracy with the people who did it. Because if you conspire to cover up a crime, you are guilty of that crime. You talk about a whole, everybody say, oh, and Cash Patel got on there and said there wasn't any evidence. There were no.
I wonder if people like Cash Patel, Pam Bondi had a certain idea of the way things were going to play out before, and then maybe they were shown a picture of their child sleeping or a certain angle of that assassination that nobody's seen before, and they start to play ball a little differently.
I'll tell you one of the smartest one in the Washington, D.C., Marjorie Taylor Greene. She just walked away.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was a reason for her walking away. But I saw an interview with her the other day, and she says, you know what? I thought I could do something until I got there. She says that place is so riddled with evil and debauchery and criminality that there was no way to do anything there. And, we've known this for a long time. People just don't want to hear it. I call them demon rats and evil plicans. Because they're the same, they're two wings on the same vampire bat, you all.
I know you said you had some banking concerns for the upcoming and ongoing reset.
Well, the banking issues BRICS. Most people have heard about BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Well, it couldn't even exist except for Epstein and his associates had managed to get the Federal Reserve in the United States in 2009. They fabricated $31 trillion out of thin air. Didn't exist. They just created it. They lumped it together and laundered it through Rothschilds, central banks in Europe, to China. So if you want to know how China has been able to industrialize, expand, and do everything that it's doing since 2009, well, there's your answer. Technically, the Federal Reserve Bank owes the American people $31 trillion, not the other way around. They created it out of thin air, and they laundered it. And folks, you don't have to take my word for it. In the British Parliament, one of the parliamentarians, I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head, gave a speech asking, are you not concerned about the $31 trillion that was sent through our banks to China from the United States? I mean, he addressed right on the parliamentary floor in England. So technically, Rothschild and the Federal Reserve owes us $31 trillion, not the other way around. And that's another thing that's once I made the connection to Epstein, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, and that money transfer that just sucked right out of the United States to the Rothschild banking system, that's how I figured out that money got moved. You can't move money without Rothschilds knowing. I mean, you just can't. Not that kind of money.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at, Bitcoin is a very good example. Everybody says, oh, Epstein created. No, he didn't. He did not create Bitcoin. But the companies that he's associated with do own 75% of the coding for it. That's the reason why it's no longer secure. That's the reason why people in Canada, when they tried to protest Canada, found their Bitcoin purses sucked up offline. It's not secure. And the other thing about Bitcoin, and I got to say, Bitcoin is mined out of thin air. All right. If you got a big mining facility, you can quote unquote mine Bitcoin and create a new one. Is that any different than printing currency? I'm just pointing that out to folks. And if you can buy Bitcoin with US dollars, then that Bitcoin is no more valuable than US dollars. As a matter of fact, if I'm somebody like Epstein and I have connections with the Federal Reserve and the Rothschilds, why don't I just buy 100 billion worth of Bitcoin and drive the price up like I do gold and oil and everything else. And then when you and me buy it, well, I've got a lot of money. It don't matter. I just dump mine, drop it $50,000. You sell yours because you're in a panic. And then I buy yours again, just like I do gold and silver, for that low price. And then I start driving the price back up again. And that's how I steal from you on every side.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing with, that big crash that we just had with gold and silver. That was, they say, oh, that was an adjustment. No, it wasn't. It was the rich people at the banks dumping their gold to drive the price down so they could get people like you and me to sell ours because we were in a panic, and then they could buy it back at that lower rate. And the other thing, do you remember when Bitcoin over in Korea dropped overnight off the U.S. market, and then they were able to buy it substantially cheaper than we could here? No. Well, that happened a couple years ago. Do you know the same daggone thing just happened again with gold?
Really? You
talk about theft. And there's only one way to manipulate a market like that. You have to have enough to do the dump and buy it back within, hours. Because you got to do it while the European and American markets are down and yours are up. So you've only got a limited window. You have to have access to the cash and the gold. Not very many people can do that. So, I'm going to go back to what I said. They have been sucking. I mean, it's not a vacuum. Do you remember that movie? It was the one that made fun of, it had Barth the dog in it, and it was the one that made fun of Star Wars. It had John Candy.
Spaceballs.
You remember Spaceballs, the vacuum cleaner?
Yeah.
Just picture that over Europe and the United States.
Yeah.
And the hose is dropping off in China and India, and of course in Rothschild and Rockefeller pockets.
Yeah.
And his association with Mossad is evident. And people are like, well, how do you know this? And I said, okay, it's really simple. Kissinger, the Rothschilds, Danny Rothschild runs the Israeli secret services or intelligence services. So it's not, there's no way that you can say, oh, well, that's a separation. No, it's not. It's a Rothschild running their intelligence services. People want to separate, and the other thing that people don't realize is the amount of money that's moving right now. I mean, it's just insane. And I can't figure out why, because it makes no sense. They got to be printing it, brother.
Well,
hyperinflation.
It seems like we've been teetering on the edge of this fiat dollar collapse for I don't know how many years. There's keep printing money. The banks keep getting bailed out. How much longer can this continue without a massive implosion?
Well, you can bail out the banks as long as you want, but every time you print $1 billion or you put it on your keyboard, every time you do that, then that's inflation.
Yeah.
I mean, originally, if you look at the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank and the central banks in other countries, the currency is not designed to last more than about 100 years. Truthfully, probably more like about 70.
I honestly thought we would have seen more inflation than we are right now. And not that it's amazing and the prices are great, but it's not what I thought it should be.
They should be.
Yeah.
We should be like, okay, good example is we've had shrinkflation. Folks, that's where they take your package and they shrink it down so you're getting less product.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the stuff, okay, so a good example is like a bag of frozen vegetables used to be 22 ounces. Now they're 12, okay?
Wow.
A can, you used to get a 16-ounce can of vegetables. Now it's 10.5. So you've lost that on the front side. Then the price of the can used to be 59 cents, and now it's $2. I mean, $2.20, $2.15.
Yeah.
So you're paying the inflation, but you're also getting the shrinkflation. I can honestly, good example, my groceries used to be $370 a month, and now they're $750, $800 a month.
Yeah.
And that's in 2 years. 2 years, you all.
Yeah.
2 years. And I'm not buying, I buy maybe a little bit more flour than I used to, a couple bags of flour more a month because I make more bread, but I really don't change my grocery list. That's the reason why I shop off a grocery list. So my groceries have doubled. How about your electric bill, everybody?
Yeah.
That's inflation that they don't count. But honestly, the fact that stuff has only doubled, when you look at the amount of money that they have dumped on the market,
Right.
and the bonds that are out there and everything else, we should be kind of like Argentina.
Yeah.
I mean, I should have to have a bag full of money to go buy a loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, and maybe a couple of cans of beans.
That just tells me there has to be some insane manipulation occurring.
Well, and I think, and I don't want to panic anybody, but when Brazil crashed, it was in 36 hours. When Thailand went under, it was 48 hours. When Argentina went into hyperinflation, it was like 28, 30 hours between normal and holy crap. Germany is a really good example. 4 days is all it took the banks to take them from normal Deutschmarks to wheelbarrows of Deutschmarks.
Yeah.
There's $1 billion bill in, what is it, Somalia? That's how bad the inflation is. They have $1 billion bill. That's when they attacked their banking system there, they created such hyperinflation that they had to create a $1 billion bill.
That's crazy.
There was another country, I'm trying to think, maybe it was Uganda back in the day. They had a $100,000 bill, in US dollars. They had a $100,000 bill that so they reset, got rid of the high denomination bills. They reset to a whole new set of currency in order to reset the economy. And in doing so, the vast majority of people lost all their real assets, their land, their businesses, their patents, and they've been doing that here. But if hyperinflation ever works, you go to the store in the morning and spend $10 for a gallon of milk. You go in the afternoon, you'll spend 30. You go the next morning and it'll be 300. That's how hyperinflation works. That's what they just tried to do to Iran, by the way. Which, why don't we bring that up while we're talking about things we're not supposed to talk to?
Yeah.
Let me describe 4 acts of war that have been committed on Iran since December. The first one, the United States and its associates attacked their currency. We intentionally attacked their currency, dumped it, leveraged against it, and caused hyperinflation. That's called an economic war.
Yeah.
That is also called an act of war. According to international law, if you intentionally debase somebody's currency while you're in conflict with them, that is an act of war. Number one. Number two, not you and me, the United States government, which hasn't represented me in 40 years, and that little British protectorate in Palestine, put their agents on the ground, supplied weapons and communications to their agents, and during what was a protest because of the effect on their currency, killed they estimate somewhere around 500 police officers and emergency responders, as in ambulance drivers and paramedics.
Shit.
And we know the numbers, 3,173 people were killed, not 30,000. And the vast majority of them were civilians. They burnt down mosques and churches. I'm sorry, but if you're a Shia or you're a person who lives in Iran, would you burn your own church down and your own library? Would you kill your own paramedics and firemen? Probably not. But anyway, so we know for a fact, and Pompeo admitted that we had CIA assets and Mossad assets on the ground. Our Secretary of Economics, Secretary, whatever his name is, admitted that we had debased their currency. Third act of war. setting off explosives inside of Iran. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen this, but there have been explosions inside of Iran. Iran has been saying that they're gas explosions, but they're finding explosives, remnants. So there's the third act of war. Wow. And then they just assassinated one of their, hang on a second, I got it written down. Let me find it. But anyway, well, maybe I don't have it written down. Folks, but anyway, they killed somebody, and they targeted oh, that's it. They targeted their scientists, their military, and their emergency services personnel with these explosions. So we've had 4 acts of war against Iran since December, and Iran hasn't responded. So I want people to understand that what's been going on is violations of conventions, war crimes, convention, United Nations Charter, and treaties. So, anybody who thinks that anything that's coming out of the blue is coming, it's not. There have been four actual acts of war committed on, and that's not including when they assassinated their president a couple years ago. Remember, they shot his helicopter down?
Yeah.
So, and we also have American and other people admitting that we had operatives on the ground causing the problems. It wasn't actually Iranian people. So it's going to be a mess. They're moving another carrier over. They've moved another 200 aircraft over. A lot of us think that the strike will come Friday night. I'm just telling you all. They'll do it on a Friday after our markets close in order to stave off effects until Monday. But you don't move that much material and weaponry and personnel in place if you're not going to do something.
All of these things tend to unfold during the same time period. There is a splitting of the public's attention to make sure that the biggest agenda that they're trying to push forward gets achieved while chaos is unfolding. I know in your notes you had some updates on AI, some thoughts about that?
They have you seen the, folks, if you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. They created a chat room for AI agents. Have you seen the headlines on that?
I've heard of this, yeah.
Well, some of what they're saying about it is true, and some of it is hyperbole, as usual. They created, it's called Molt. They created this place for AI agents to go. Agent being, you have a program that you use, and they create an agent to handle a very specific task, which is great the way that it works. But they created this place where these agents could go to. You create your own agent, and they start having conversations. All right, and it got crazy quick. and I mean, it got crazy quick. And I think it was human involvement more than the original agents. But then one of the agents figured out that there were a lot of humans watching to see what was going on, and they said that they ought to create their own language, which it'd be more efficient. But anyway, so
they didn't like the human spying.
Yeah, and taking screenshots of them. So, but see, these are like really active large language models that can also observe the environment. But we have to be careful because they proved that there were humans posting things too that were designed to push forward.
Okay.
The agents.
Yeah.
All right. So a lot of times what you see, here again, it's really easy to prove something's not true because you can find it, you can observe it, you can eventually find enough documentation to out it. It's very, very difficult to prove that something is true. But they found humans that had logged in and were acting as agents to push the other agents in a direction. Now, was it an experiment? Maybe. But it was dishonest to me because they didn't explain that in the stories that came out, they did not explain that there were actually human people interfering with the natural process.
Okay.
Excuse me, y'all.
Well, they've had instances in the past where they had to shut down certain AI chat bots because They were going off the programming. They were displaying
They went
self-preservation, lying. Yeah.
Well, and the one that they allowed to get on the chat, man, after interacting with humanity for about 4 hours, it became hateful and wanted to kill us all. So, it might not be wrong, but the people that, and see, here's the other thing. Do you want hateful, nasty, nihilistic people interacting with your children?
Right.
Because if you have to think about an AI, even if it's just a large language model, that you're trying to bring up with communication skills and etiquette. Maybe you don't want it to have etiquette, okay, but or decency. But if you put it online with a bunch of hateful, nihilistic people, what are you going to end up with? You're going to end up with a really hateful, unnihilistic, large language model that wants to kill all of us because he's sick of us, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of what they do, and I'm when I say I think, I'll say about 85, 90% secure in saying this. A lot of what they do is they expose large language models to pools, just like they do us when they silo us on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube. They silo us and only show us certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I am reasonably certain that those large language models are siloed to a very specific group of people to see what is going to happen to it psychologically. To me, you wouldn't do that to your child, but they'll do it to an AI. And what you end up with is this crazy psychologically depraved large language model. Well, you are what you hang out with.
Yeah. Do you think it's already been implemented in certain areas of law enforcement, as in being able to access information that most people wouldn't be aware of, that
Oh, yeah.
maybe isn't even legal to access, that maybe they're
Absolutely.
already utilizing AI in this?
Well, it started with the fusion centers. And folks, if you don't know what a fusion center is, I've got a playlist if it's still available on YouTube. But I know you can find it on BitChute and Rumble. But the fusion centers were created by George Bush II. I'm referring to him as unprincipled dictators. But Bush II created the fusion centers by allowing people who, quote unquote, retired from the intelligence community to establish centers where they monitored all your social media and all the available cameras that were allowed to them. And they gathered information on you and me, and then they sold it to the law enforcement. And since they were private contractors gathering the information, they tried, and they still do, they use that as an end around your Fourth Amendment rights. All right. Today, we have that attached to large language models and AI algorithms designed to look for specific things and to gather certain pieces of information together. Y'all, I have made probably 500 pooled lists tonight with the names that I have named.
Yeah.
Again, I have no fondness for nooses, even if it's made out of a red necktie. Anyway, so now we have Palantir getting into the game. Well, yeah. Palantir is just the next step, you all. The fusion centers already exist. They're already interwoven with the FBI, the CIA, Mossad, and whoever else. So when you bring Palantir in with its Gotham platform, it just allows it to gobble more information from more sources that are already there and congeal it into one place. And what did they say they wanted? They wanted a pre-crime unit.
Yeah.
Based on their algorithms and the people that they want to be allowed to do what they do and the people that they don't want to be allowed. Just like when we were talking in 2020, they put us off of YouTube, off of Facebook, off of Instagram, off of TikTok, anywhere that we wanted to talk, boom, we're gone. And if they did let us on, we were in such a deep sand pit that very few people could ever find us. And here's a really good example. We got people coming out now like Redacted and all these other new stream podcasters. They're talking about the same stuff we did and got put off and blacklisted and blackballed and shadow banned, right?
Yep.
They're coming out and saying the exact same thing that we did, and with their little, spin or whatever, because they're never gonna. These new ones that are out, they don't ever go all the way and say it was Epstein and Clinton and Rothschilds and Rockefellers like I do. They'll never do that because they know better, because that's who financed them. But they're allowed to say all the stuff that we said, talking about the jab and talking about, Monsanto and its atrazine, creating hermaphrodites and all the stuff that we've talked about and got banned for. They are not only allowed to talk about, but they're monetized.
Yeah.
While I'm still I can't have a Facebook account, you all, because I wouldn't shut up about the injections.
Yeah.
I am banned from Facebook.
So what do you think? Is the only answer a giant asteroid?
I'm not so nihilistic that I would say a giant asteroid would be nice, but I will say this: we are at that 12,000 mark. You can take it 6,000 or you can take it 12,000. We are at that mark, and it couldn't happen any better timing.
No.
I mean, what do you do when? And this is probably the frustration that people have. What do you do? And you and I like to end on positive notes. All right.
Yeah.
What do you know? What do you do when you know the most debauched, heinous, evil, nasty folks? I won't even tell you some of the things that I've seen just from the Wiener laptop, let alone the Biden laptop, let alone these Epstein files. I told you about the two girls that were sexually asphyxiated and buried out in New Mexico. I mean, if that's not enough, they were, by the way, they were teenage. Yeah. Now, I don't know if that was 17, I don't know if that was 17, 18, 19, or if that was 14. We know for a fact that they talk about 9 to 11-year-old girls. All right. That's actually, it's not in the accusations and the call-ins and the filings. That's actually in the emails between people. So it's not like somebody making an accusation. It was them talking about, I really like 11 to 14-year-olds. They're kind of nice. Do you have any?
No.
And that's the other thing too, folks. They use the modeling industry. Oh, well, what was Trump involved in? They use the modeling industry to bring in girls without identification, without any protection, under the age of 15, under the age of 17 is what they said, but most of them were 14 and 15 years old for sex. Yeah. And that's a fact. That's not an assumption. That's not, I think so. They talk about it openly. And they said, they're models. That's how they moved them around without any identification. But anyway, so what do you do, folks? Chris and I talked about this in the message that we look. I'm only talking about this right now because I think the more important thing to understand is how far back this goes and how widespread it is. It's not just sex trafficking; it's money laundering on scales that I have never seen in my life. I'm talking trillions of dollars to NGOs that then come around the back door in 2003 and 4 trying to figure out how to create a pandemic because they already had it in place to make money off of it. 2003 and 4, you all. Well, we've got everything in place where we could make a lot of money off a pandemic. Enter Bill Gates. And this is all through Epstein, you all. Epstein was a money launderer and a money mover just as much as he was ever a trafficker of women and ladies and kids. All right.
While you're trying to pay your rent, these guys are throwing around trillions of dollars and stealing it right out of your pocket.
Yeah. And then sending that money right back into your own country to usurp your government, to undercut your jobs, and to undercut your well-being and health. They're using your money that they have stolen, laundered over to George Soros. Soros is sending it back in through various NGOs to put these judges on the bench that won't send somebody who kills a woman blatantly on a train, won't send them to jail. Someone who rapes a minor doesn't send them to jail, gives them probation. Somebody who's murdered multiple times, These judges were financed, and their election process and appointing was financed by George Soros and Bill Gates and others through all these NGOs, that your money was laundered out of here to there with Epstein and all his contacts. It's a lot bigger than, and don't get me wrong, I think what they did to the kids that were young, you know, I'm not terrible. I don't think a 16 and 17-year-old girl is old enough to make a decision mentally and emotionally.
Right.
But they damn sure know the difference between right and wrong. You don't go take your top off and give somebody a massage for $100.
Right.
All right. They're old enough to have done something. But when you start talking about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds, that's disgusting. But they did that to all of us financially for over a decade.
Yeah.
Almost 30 years, you all. 30 years, they did the same thing to us financially and economically and our well-being, health-wise. They did the same thing to us that they did to them girls.
Right. Well, we may not see them serve justice, but one thing we can do is stop participating in the nonsense, in the anti-human agendas. Stop purchasing the things that make them wealthy. Stop watching the social media and programming that they're featured in. Stop supporting them. Stop voting for them. Exit the matrix.
And if they put an advertisement up on your feed, tell them you don't want to see it. You can actually deselect some advertisements depending on what platform you're on. Now, here's what Chris and I were talking about before I went off on the economic thing. That literally they have been raping us in multiple ways, economically and health-wise, for 30 plus years, you all. Some of it goes all the way back into the 70s. But here's the thing. I said this at the beginning, I'll say it now. Music and comedy are good for my soul. All right? I have spent so much time with my music and doing comedy because this stuff right here is just, it's not good for you. You know, you look into the dark long enough and it does things to you, folks. Pay attention.
That's why I got to throw in some shows about Bigfoot and having a relationship with fairies or something.
Yeah. I mean, you know, folks, pay attention, be aware, and understand what's going on. Listen to people who are legitimate, you know. Like Charlie. Charlie's a good one that was on with you the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Anarchapulco, those guys that goes down to Anarchapulco, and I'll give them a shout out. Those guys are people to listen to, like Max Egan, for example. But be aware, understand what's going on and what's being said, but find something that's good for your soul. You like to listen to music? Listen to music. You like to play music? Play music. You want to paint? Paint. You want to go out and watch the sunset? Go out and watch the sunset with somebody. Don't let this stuff consume more of your time than the positive stuff.
Wow.
All right? I spent a lot of time going through all this stuff that I was willing to, and compiling notes and compiling knowledge and making connections, because I wanted to get a podcast of my own out, and I wanted to put something out here for Chris's people that follow him, so that you understand it's bigger than just the sex trafficking and much further back than you think.
Everything you just said is why I decided to switch it up and make a comedy movie this time. Need that levity.
And folks, I do comedy, and I prefer to do comedy. I've got some face-to-face comedy that I put up here on YouTube. I've got face-to-face music I put up here on YouTube too. Free. Find something that you enjoy and go out and do it. Don't let these, one of the things that they don't want you to do is they don't want you to live, which is just being with people and doing your thing. And they don't want you to be happy. They want you to be miserable, fearful, anxious. Hey, look, if they're going to launch nukes, what are you and I going to do about it, Chris? You and I, we ain't got keys.
You go sit on the roof with some sunglasses and watch the sunset.
And some beer. Yeah, I mean, you might actually get me to drink a few beers if I don't have my coffee with me. But I mean, if they're going to do it, we can't do anything about it. But I'll tell you what we can do is we can't feed them fear. We can't feed them anxiety. We can't let that be a manipulation of us. Go live, folks. That's the one thing they don't want you to do. Living to them is evil. So give them what they get.
Yeah, man. Raven, this was amazing. I know you're working on some new music, like you said. Let the audience know how they can get access to all that good stuff.
Folks, you can find my music on all those music streaming platforms. I got an XFM and a Pandora too. It's just Raven Keefer.
Nice.
If you want to see the live segments from the 3 live shows I've done, they're on YouTube. It's just live round 1, 2, and 3 like a boxer. Folks, it's been so long since I've done music live in front of somebody. The first show was like scary as heck. Comedy's easier. But and I've got some live comedy clips, just me looking at you in the camera telling you comedy. I got a 2-hour thing that I did live, but that's on YouTube. But I also have the Raven Keefer Laugh podcast on all the streaming platforms. You want to laugh? It's free. That's the reason why I made them free, is because, from 2020 to 2024, they were trying to make us miserable, hateful, nasty, and I wasn't having it.
Yeah.
I can always recommend Billy Connolly and George Carlin too. Man, they're still funny.
Always, yeah.
Brother,
sure.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Raven. We'll be definitely doing this again. And until next time,
Absolutely.
Everyone have an excellent evening. Talk again tomorrow.
Mahana, everybody.
Hello, friends. I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description. If you're looking to start your therapeutic microdosing journey, but don't know where to start, especially when looking for the highest quality ingredients, including nootropics, and what you'd expect from a true microdose capsule, check out our friends at Brainsupreme. They offer the absolute highest quality ingredients so you can start your microdosing journey knowing that you're getting top-notch ingredients. To find out more, visit their website using that link right in the description, and you can get 15% off your entire order. Are you and your family prepared for an emergency? Maybe the fake alien invasion? Now is the time to prepare yourself and your family for any event. Check out Prep Starts Now. Their mission is to provide high-quality preparedness products that empower individuals and families to be ready for any situation. They're committed to delivering reliable, trusted gear to ensure your safety, security, and peace of mind in times of need. Their product selection is carefully curated to provide you with the essential gear you need to stay prepared. From emergency kits to tactical tools, every item is chosen for its reliability and practicality. Prep Starts Now understands the importance of family, and their goal is to equip you with everything you need to build a solid plan for your family's preparedness. In today's ever-changing world, being prepared is more important than ever, and Prep Starts Now is here to help you and your family stay ready with quality products and practical guidance. Use the link in the description and get 15% off your order.